Hi everyone, how's it going? My name is Jay and welcome to the channel and welcome back to October Lake in Planet Zoo, a series where we're working on building this really large wildlife park situated in the Canadian Highlands. In today's episode, we're going to be building a habitat for a pair of Okapi. If that does sound good to you, and if you do like today's video, please do consider leaving a like down below. And of course, if you do want to see more Planet Zoo content, do consider subscribing to the channel. I put out Planet Zoo videos every Wednesday at 5 PM UK time. Now, with the intro out of the way, let us talk about what it is we're going to be doing today. So, as you will have heard from the intro, we are going to be doing a habitat for a pair of Okapi, or Okapi as some people call them. These guys are really cool animals. They're just very interesting. Definitely one of the more prominent animals to have been featured on a variety of zoo type games. So like from Zoo Tycoon to Zoo Tycoon 2, you will have seen Okapi in several of those. They're relatively common, well I wouldn't say common in zoos, but there's well over 100 individuals in zoos worldwide, and they're definitely becoming more prominent in the limelight as we go forward in time. They are endangered in the wild unfortunately, but that is kind of why zoos are really important for them specifically, because there are captive breeding programs going on. And I want to do the Okapi specifically because relatively recently, in fact maybe 2-3 months ago, in my local zoo, which is London Zoo, there was in fact a new Okapi birth, and we have a new baby Okapi. And like, I followed London Zoo Twitter page, and I do recommend you do as well. I just follow a lot of zoos on Twitter. And they were posting some pictures of this new baby Okapi, and oh my god, it was so adorable. Just the cutest little dude. I'm just blown away by how adorable it is, and genuinely, like, Okapi are such incredible animals, and to see a baby one, you know, for an endangered animal, for an animal that is quite shy, quite reclusive in the wild, to know that it has a decent, like a standard of living well, like good enough in captivity that it is comfortable reproducing and, you know, contributing to this captive breeding effort, it is just such a cool thing to see, and it's quite amazing. And as for the habitat today that we're going to be building, it's going to be a relatively simple habitat, nothing too fancy. I think it is quite important in zoos that between all the big feature habitats, you do have some simpler habitats, because not every animal is going to want something over the top or, you know, very intense. Like, of course it will benefit a lot of animals. For example, having a really massive tiger trail with like loads of enrichment and trees and climbing spots is going to really benefit a big cat or a tiger, like I said. But for an animal like an Okapi, enrichment can be kept relatively simple, because they really in the wild enjoy kind of the simpler aspects of life. They're a grazer. They kind of just enjoy hanging out in the forests and eating and being secure and safe. And it honestly, in a zoo, that's kind of what you want to aim for as well. Make sure they feel secure and safe, and give them some simple enrichment to keep them happy and keep them interesting. Keep the habitat interesting for them. So just that sort of thing, but it doesn't have to be too fancy. And I think that sort of thing does help with the zoo's aesthetic as a whole as well, to have these like habitats between the bigger ones that look a little bit more chill and a little bit more kind of, yeah, just a bit more relaxed. And I think this one ends up looking pretty good. As you can see, we're doing a lot of the same sort of stylings that we have been doing with the previous few habitats that I've been working on. So like the tortoise habitat and the red panda, this is very much along those lines, using the same sort of modern stylings, and all located kind of in the same area at the top of this hill. I imagine this is one of the newest parts of the zoo, so when the zoo gets a lot of funding, this is where it all goes to, some of these newer habitats, and I think it looks really nice. I very much like the modern styling. I think it still keeps the zoo vibe while looking really cool, and I think it just really suits this area. Now, while we're working on building the infrastructure, as you can see on screen, let's talk a little bit about the Okapi or the Okapi themselves. So, like I said, they're really interesting animals. They are also known as the forest giraffe for very obvious reasons. They do look like a giraffe, and that isn't, you know, like some accident. They are in fact the closest living relatives to giraffes. They are part of the Giraffidae family, and they're the only other genus besides giraffes themselves. And you can see a lot of the similarities in how they look. So if you look at the Okapi heads, they also have these little horns. They're not really horns, they're called ossicones. And these are sort of the same things you see on male giraffes. They're very much like antlers or horns, and generally speaking are only found in the giraffe kind of family. And they have a permanent covering of skin and fur, which you don't really see on antlers or horns. And they're quite cool. They generally speaking are used as kind of weapons during dominance displays and stuff. So if you've seen a wildlife documentary, you've probably seen giraffes kind of butting heads. They use those ossicones to kind of like knock each other around basically. So on females they don't have them, which is of course understandable here because only the males seem to engage in these big dominance displays. But yeah, otherwise they also just generally look quite like giraffes. They've got this long neck, not anywhere near as long as a giraffe, but still pretty long. They've got the same floppy ears, they've got the same kind of like horse-like face. The big difference of course is coloration. These guys do not have anywhere near the same sort of like mottled, reticulated colors the giraffe has. These guys instead have a much more deep, dark, brownish red fur, which helps camouflage in the forest. But they also have these really striking white striping. That sounds a bit like a rhyme, doesn't it? Striking white striping. But it is really striking, and they have it down their back legs and also down the lower parts of their front legs. Really beautiful, I think. And in their back legs, their whole ankle area is completely white, which is really cool as well. These guys, like their name suggests, the forest giraffe, they do live almost entirely in forests where they feed on leaves, grasses, ferns, fruits, that sort of thing. So they are very, very shy. They generally hide very deep in the forest, where like even the daytime looks like darkness because of how deep and dense the trees are. It is a very shy animal. In fact, they were only discovered by people outside of the deep African regions where they are found, which is Central Africa, I believe. And they were only discovered by, I think, European explorers sometime in like the late 1800s, so it's not that long ago. So yeah, they were definitely very hidden. But they are very cool, and they've got quite distinct differences between the sexes as well. So like I mentioned before, the males of course have those ossicones, but the females are significantly larger actually, which is very interesting. Overall, they are medium-sized animals. I know that doesn't say very much, but they are medium-sized in the sense that they are not as big as a giraffe and not as small as like a baby giraffe. I don't know where that was going, but yeah, they're very, very much medium-sized. They stand about as tall as a regular human being, I guess, kind of around that sort of height. But they are about 2.5 meters long, and they range from 200 to 350 kilograms or so. They do have a pretty good captive breeding program at zoos, like I mentioned before with the London Zoo baby Okapi. It is really cool to see. In Europe, and in fact I think for the whole world, the stud book, which is how zookeepers kind of manage the captive breeding population and make sure that they all have genetic diversity, that stud book is managed by Antwerp Zoo, I believe, which are the zoo which keep the oldest, as in they were the first to keep Okapi, and they've had really good success breeding them. And like I mentioned, London Zoo now has a pair, and now they've got a third because they've got the really cute baby. It's such an adorable baby, and I cannot wait to go back there so I can see them. Of course, London Zoo is closed due to lockdown, but the second I can go, once it's open, I am going right back there. Like, I've got a membership to the zoo, but unfortunately because of COVID and all that, I haven't been able to use it very much. But yeah, let's go back to talking about what's going on screen. So you will have seen me put down a bunch of rocks and a little bit of a pool in the middle so they can do some wading. Over here you're going to see me put like this shade structure in the middle. I give up on it entirely in a bit because I don't think it looks very good. It'll still be here for a bit, but I will get rid of it. On the side here, I'm making a pair of stables for them just so they can get out of the sun, and also if they're feeling a bit stressed by the people, they can go in there and rest. I'm again toying around with the shade outside. It doesn't last very long, it just doesn't look good. But for the pond, I wanted to give it a bit more of an artificial look. So I did use these 4 rock pieces and line them on the outside. I think it looks pretty good. You may have seen earlier as well, I worked in the staff building kind of on the other side of this. That's kind of connected to where the tortoises are as well, so I think that looks pretty good. Here's the stable pretty much being complete, just adding in the roof structures and then just tweaking it a little bit to make it look a bit nicer. I think simple stables like this are great for ungulates, so deer, giraffe, zebras, well maybe not giraffe, but like zebras, antelope, they benefit a lot from stables like this. Relatively simple, it gives them everything they need, very easy for zookeepers to clean out compared to like some of the more say themed habitats where like, you know, you have more like cave-like habitat structures and stuff. Those are going to be a lot harder to clean. Just adding in some wooden struts here, I think they make it look a lot more realistic, of course. And I think it just overall looks quite good. Now you may notice the habitat is looking quite empty right now, and that's because most of my work with the foliage happens in these last few minutes after I'm done with this building. And that is quite significant because I wanted this area to look quite heavily forested. These guys are of course forest giraffes, and I wanted them to have loads of hiding space amongst the trees, lots of trees. I wanted them to just be able to run around the forest and hide and enjoy themselves without worrying too much about the guests watching them. And I think I kind of succeeded, because of course these are tropical animals, but here we are in the taiga biome. I can't of course use tropical trees, so I'm using the current taiga trees, but just making them feel a bit denser, using some temperate trees as well. So it does give them that security and that shade, and I think it looks quite good. Hopefully the Okapi think so as well. But yeah, as you can see, quite heavily foresting this. In my headcanon for this park, I imagine that they planned this out for a foresty animal and they just didn't remove the trees when they were building the zoo, so this habitat would have been built around the forest as opposed to through the forest, and I think that gets conveyed reasonably well, hopefully. Now this is just for the final few final touches before we end the episode. I am just adding a couple fallen logs for enrichment, and then loads of low-lying shrubbery, a lot of diamond leaf willows, a few like, did I use the wattle bush? No, I don't think so. But I used like some ferns, a few like some of these Himalayan birches that I've sunk into the ground, a few saplings to make it look like some new trees have been planted as well. And especially near the back, I wanted to add a lot of bushy plants so that it looks like it really kind of gets thicker and thicker the deeper into the habitat you go. And I think the Okapi, of course in real life versus in the game, I'm pretty sure real life Okapi would enjoy this just as much, but you know, I think it turns out looking pretty good if you do ask, if I do say so myself. I think it looks pretty nice. And that's pretty much it. Oh, actually, yeah, I actually end up doing a different shaded structure out here, which I think looks pretty good as well. It's a very simple wooden structure using these kind of wood slats at a slight angle to emulate kind of just a little shady structure, basically. Nothing too fancy about it. I'm using these wooden planks instead because I didn't really like the Australian ones that much. Don't get me wrong, they're nice, they just didn't work too well for this particular habitat. As you can see, that's just kind of what I'm doing, and then using the planks to trim them out, and eventually it'll just look like a very reasonably sized, quite basic shelter, just like that, you can see now. Anyways, we are coming up to the end of the episode, so I just want to say, as usual, thank you so much for watching. Please do leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions, or if there's anything you want to let me know, or if you just want to chat down in the comments. I'm always down there replying to them, so more than happy to talk to you guys. And as always, do like the video if you did like it. Please do subscribe for more Planet Zoo content. Like I said, I do upload every Wednesday at 5 PM UK time. And yeah, as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!